The Resource Center for Human Rights and Civic Education, in collaboration with MacArthur Foundation, organized a national stakeholders dialogue on rights of original inhabitants of the FCT to mark the United Nations International Day of World Indigenous People, which is being celebrated on the 9th of August every year. The Executive Director, Resource Center for Human Rights and Civic Education, Dr. Ibrahim Zakirullah, while giving his welcome remarks at the National Stakeholders Dialogue, which took place at Abuja, said the project is aimed at supporting FCT original inhabitants to lawfully seek redress for decades of marginalization in their ancestral land.
Unlike other Nigerians in various states who have the right to vote for a governor and a state house of assembly, the FCT original inhabitants do not have such right. It is worth noting that over time, the original inhabitants have done everything they could to highlight these obvious issues of discrimination and entrench injustices that the original inhabitants of the FCT face in the political system operating under the 1999 Constitution. The FCT original inhabitants made enormous sacrifices to provide space for Nigeria's capital. Therefore, the state can no longer ignore the voices of the original inhabitants, who have been voicing concern about their neglect and deprivation for years. Nigeria must remember its commitment under its own constitution and international human rights instruments to consider and properly address the plight of FCT original inhabitants. Given that FCT original inhabitants have faced marginalization and exclusion for decades, addressing their issues requires collective efforts, support, and solidarity. This is what makes today's dialogue a very important one. In many other parts of our country, there is a plethora of issues of indigenous rights, which in some instances have had far-reaching implications for the stability of the country. One of the unique qualities of the FCT original inhabitants is the fact that they have always relied on peaceful and lawful approaches to get their voices heard. For this reason alone, the authorities ought to listen to their plights and ensure they have reprieve. It is important for the government not to give the impression that only the violent and unruly can get their attention and have their issues addressed.
Director Africa Office, MacArthur Foundation, Dr. Kole Shetima, said the foundation is ready to help the FCT original inhabitants as they have made them comfortable in their land.
The foundation have been operating out of Ibadan until 2000 when we moved here, and we never had any program that was dedicated to the people of Abuja. And so when we had the opportunity last year to make this, we were very, very excited because we believe that we as a foundation, we have a responsibility. We as a foundation, we should also show our own good neighborhoodness, not just only to have our office in Maitama, but also to show that we value the people who have created and who have donated their land to make us to be able to be comfortable in their own community. Also, we think that this is something that I think that we as a people in Nigeria, we should also recognize the rights of indigenous people, and we should value the contributions that they have made to us in our society, and we should do all that we can to ensure that their rights are also protected.
Faith Nwadishi, the Executive Director, Center for Transparency and Advocacy, said the rights of the FCT original inhabitants have to be fought for, as there's nothing that can be used to recognize that FCT belongs to the original inhabitants.
Geographical location we have of the FCT today is not the first place we have had as our national capital. In Lagos, when you are approaching Lagos, you will see the three, you will understand that this is significant to the people of Lagos State. But in coming to Abuja, at the city gate, there's nothing that depicts the fact that there are people who own this land. There's nothing there. We have 36 states and the federal capital and the federal capital territory. Yet you have people represented from the 36 states on the Federal Executive Council, and there's not one person from the geographical location called the FCT. It's important that when people sit around a table and you have somebody who understands, that's why they say he or she who wears a shoe knows where it pinches. When you have somebody from that geopolitical zone who sits on that table, is able to portray and put forward their issues passionately because it's coming from the person who is experiencing it. A lot of us know Gariki, but some of us don't know the Gariki village. You need to see the difference between the Gariki that we know and the Gariki village that is in the existence. Some of us know Kuje because we pass through Kuje to the way to the airport. But when you go to certain communities like Godoji community that is in Kuje, for instance, basic water they don't have. We visited the Godoji community, and the source of water they have is a pond. And let me shock you that that source of water, where that water is, has been given to somebody, sold to somebody, and the person is right now in the process of fencing it off. As soon as that water is fenced off, it means that the people in Godoji community may not have access to even that pond water to drink. There's Ushafa. We all hear about Ushafa. We all know that water board works. In some of our homes, we just turn on the tap and the tap comes on. The people from the water board, they come to collect money from us. Water is brought from the Shafa Dam, but the people in the Shafa community don't have potable water. So that is how bad the issues are, and that is why it's important that everybody must jump on this issue and ensure that the right things are done.
Abosede Adepoju, G24 TV International News.